The list of DPS characters in Marvel Rivals is pretty extensive, and so many of them have such unique abilities, but I personally think that there is one underlying problem that honestly extends past just a DPS class, and I think a lot of people agree. And that problem is that there are too many ultimates in this game that are either extremely similar or extremely simple. So in this video I wanted to go over that and give an analysis on this problem, while also giving my own opinions and ideas on how you can fix it. But before we begin the video, if you're new to the channel and you're not yet subscribed, please make sure to subscribe and give my other content a try as well. There's lots of stuff for you guys to check out. So let's begin. So first of all, I wanted to start small and just discuss the DPS class, and then we can scale it up later. Because when it comes to the DPS class, my main problem is that too many ultimates just boil down to press this button to do massive amounts of damage. And while initially you think that that can work for a lot of characters and that it makes sense considering that the name of the class is DPS or damage per second, my personal opinion is that you can make it so much more interesting. You can make an ultimate that can actually enhance the flow of the character's kit. And to understand that, I think it's easier to give an example of what I personally believe is a well-designed ultimate and what isn't. So there's a couple of examples that I want to go over. So what is a good ultimate for a DPS character? Well, in my opinion, I believe Black Panther, Winter Soldier, Magic, and Iron Fist are all really good examples. I mean, think about it. Let's go more in depth on Winter Soldier, for example. Winter Soldier's ultimate perfectly fits and flows with the rest of his kit. His ultimate is actually a part of his combo. You pull the enemy in, you use your uppercut, shoot, and then you ult to get that reset and kill the opponent. And if you kill that opponent successfully, you can keep on going with your chain of ultimates while weaving in your own abilities in between whenever they come off cooldown. And that's not to mention that ulting the enemy team as Bucky is a commitment. When you press that button, you are actively jumping into the enemy team. And if you can't pull off a kill really fast, there is a very high chance that you are most likely going to end up dead. Magic as well has a great ultimate. She quite literally enhances the rest of her basic abilities to an upgraded version. But at the same time, her timings and windups for her abilities become different. All of a sudden now they're slower, so it's a different way of playing, but it has a bigger reward. So you can still keep the player engaged while not just simply pressing one button and then killing everything that's in front of you. But then on the other side of things, you have characters like Storm that just press one button and they proceed to do massive amounts of damage in one big circle. Or you have Punisher that presses ult and then just pulverizes everything on his screen by just holding down his left click. And I want to make sure that everybody understands that I'm not saying that it doesn't fit with their design particularly. Like, I'm not saying that Storm turning into a giant tornado doesn't make sense, because it does. That's part of her powers, just like it makes sense for Punisher to get a bunch of miniguns and rockets to just eliminate everyone in front of him. But what I mean is that you can make it so much more interesting, right? You can make it so perhaps you design an ultimate that actually keeps the player engaged. Because think about it, for Punisher, like I said, you just press one button and then you hold left click and everything in front of you kind of just dies, unless you have a support ult on the enemy team, which will be a whole other topic that I'll be discussing later as well. But you could definitely make something that actually feels a little bit more interactive rather than just press one button and then kill everything. Like, for example, on Storm, you could give her an ultimate that she gets to push enemies around with wind, for example, right? Or maybe she throws a bunch of opponents into the air, or maybe she lifts her allies in the air, or gives them a bunch of movement speed. There's so much more utility here that you can think of than just, one big tornado that just kills everything on its path. I do think visually it looks cool, but I think it just could be a little bit more engaging. And that's not to say that I don't think these kind of ults can work. For example, I think Iron Man has a pretty well-designed ult. At lower levels of play, he's actually, considered powerful. He could be considered powerful. But as you get better, you find that players will react to Iron Man ult a lot faster, right? In higher elos, the second they hear maximum pulse, everybody just scatters away, or they all look at Iron Man immediately and one-shot him, or they block it with the shield, or they Magneto ult. People react a lot faster, right? So it kind of forces Iron Man players to find other ways to get that ultimate off. So you end up finding players that will sneak into the back line and they'll just ult, and if people hear the voice line, they look around it, they don't see him because he's behind them, or he just got a really great angle for an ultimate and he gets a bunch of kills. So that's the situation where I think it works. The same thing goes for Scarlet Witch ult, for example, right? Everybody hears her ultimate. So most of the time when you see a Scarlet Witch, she instantly gets, crowd controlled with her ultimate canceled, or everybody just locks eyes at her and kills her immediately. So when people find ways to make that work, because normally it is easily avoidable, I think that's a good design, right? Because you are forced to play better and think a lot more when you use your ultimate, instead of just being a button that you just press and you kill everything instantly, right? So there are definitely ways of making it work. And I can also admit myself that a lot of these ultimates can feel satisfying. I mean, shooting, a Moon Knight ult and eliminating like 4 people at once, or maybe just, the whole team. Yeah, it feels pretty satisfying. But I, at the same time, feel like there's just too many of those ultimates, right? From Squirrel Girl just randomly throwing a wave of squirrels in the general direction of the enemy team and, obliterating everybody, to Wolverine being able to just, squad wipe everyone by pressing literally 2 buttons, or Moon Knight nuking the whole enemy team. I just feel like these ultimates could be so much more, and I feel like a lot of people would agree with me on that. And this is where I think this problem expands onto another class, and you probably guessed it already, that is the strategist class. The strategist problem goes hand in hand with the DPS problem. Too many DPS ultimates are simply just massive amounts of damage in one circle or line that instantly kill you, and that forces the strategist ultimates to be big circle of healing that makes you immortal. Everyone has gone through that one annoying fight where each support ults and they become immortal for 8 seconds, then it's over, then the other support ults, and then they're also immortal again for 8 seconds, and then your support ults, and then the enemy team can't do anything, and it's just a massive loop of support ults, and the enemy team just can't die, then your team can't die, until somebody finds a way to sneak in a DPS ult and one-shot everything. So these fights can get kind of annoying. Oh, Jesus Christ. Oh my god, bro, there's no way. I'm sure that everyone here watching this video has gone through at least one of these fights, and it can get kind of boring at times. So you put these 2 problems together and you have, just games that feel kind of stale, and sometimes they could even draw the player from not wanting to play more games that day. They just kind of get, bored out or just annoyed and they log out, right? So that is definitely a problem that needs to be tackled. And I honestly think that you could go a bit deeper here and say that maybe this makes it easier to give players, a good dopamine release where they just wipe the enemy team, right? I pressed 1 button and I killed everything. That's a crazy, dopamine release, or you just healed everyone, in your team from 1 HP. But rather than dwelling on these kind of, problems here, I'd rather discuss some possible solutions. So this is where we enter the last part of the video, where I kind of give my own opinion on this. First of all, obviously the perfect solution would be, rework from the ground up. Just remake all of these ultimates and, give them something completely new that actually fits these characters more or keeps the player engaged more. But that's simply not realistic. That, for a number of reasons, that's just not going to happen. That would take an extremely long amount of time, and a lot of people are just used to the way ultimates are now. It would shake up the game, really, really hard. So there are definitely other ways that we can find here. I think a big contributor to this problem is definitely ult charges. So ult charges, I think, is something that they've tackled already as well. It's already been nerfed, you know, honestly multiple times, but certain characters just get their ultimates way too fast. Some games I will start playing and then the enemy support gets their ultimate in genuinely like 30 seconds. Like, it's honestly insane that you're able to get it this fast. It just makes the game so boring sometimes because you're trying to push just as the game starts, and then instantly the enemy team is just immortal for 8 seconds, and it just feels so crazy. And this problem is not just a strategist problem, by the way. DPS characters also get it super fast. Spider-Man gets, I think, honestly a little bit too fast. Human Torch, he's a complete menace right now in ranked. He's perma-banned because he gets it so fast. He outputs so much damage. So there's definitely characters in both classes that I think could have their ultimate charge tuned up a little bit, so it's a little bit slower to get. But as for future characters that are still going to be released, I think if we keep going this way of, you know, release a support, okay, their ult is just a big circle of healing. Release a DPS, oh, their ult is just, you know, a bunch of damage that you just dump out and kill everybody. I think eventually, not right now, maybe not this year, maybe in a couple of years, the game is going to become kind of stale because you're going to have these, you know, tons of characters, because you need to keep in mind that after the season, we are getting one character a month. There's 2-month seasons, and each month we're getting a character. And I think if this keeps going the way that it is, this could be kind of tragic for the game in the long term, right? Right now, people are enjoying it. Yes, you know, new character every month. I want my favorite character in right now. But long term, we could have a situation where we have, you know, 100 characters, and 40 or so of them kind of just do the same thing, at least when it comes to their ultimate, and they're kind of interchangeable. And I don't want that to happen to the game. This is, you know, something that I want them to be aware of, because I don't want it to happen. I don't want my, you know, when my favorite character gets added to the game, I look at his ultimate and then he just has like a similar ultimate to like Moon Knight or something, you know. I want characters to feel unique. I want to play the characters and feel like I'm playing the characters. You know, when I play Spider-Man, I feel like I'm Spider-Man because his abilities are so unique. But then I press his ultimate button and then it's just, you know, a bunch of AoE damage. It's kind of like whatever. You know, what's the difference of that and like Moon Knight ult? You know, they're basically just big AoE damage. And I don't want people to feel like this is me hating, you know, on the devs, because I love this game. If I didn't love it, I wouldn't be making this video. I wouldn't play the game. You know, I'll be doing something else. I just want to make sure that this is, you know, the best that it could be. I want to make sure that once, you know, everybody gets their favorite characters into the game, they feel unique and they feel cool. You know, I think, for example, the tank class is super cool. I think most of their ultimates have been honestly really well designed. You know, Hulk feels like the Hulk. You know, Penny ultimate is also pretty unique. I don't think there's too much characters that do what she does. The Thing also has a pretty great ult. Most of them, honestly. You know, Emma Frost just came out. She has a pretty cool ult. Super unique to have a taunt in the game. So they have done, you know, great job for a lot of characters. I'm just saying that in the long term, this could be a problem. And I want to put this out there to make people more aware of it. Maybe make, you know, the devs more aware of it. And if this honestly makes it so they have to extend, you know, the timeline to release characters, I wouldn't be mad. I know that people, you know, some of them would be upset if they, you know, change their plans again and now we don't get heroes every month. But I just think that one every month might put the devs in a little bit of crunch, and they kind of end up making, you know, repeating the designs, and it feels a little bit repetitive. So this is just me, you know, giving my opinion and trying to make it better. So this is the end of the video. This is the final section. Let me know down below if you guys agreed. Maybe you didn't agree. Maybe you think, you know, I'm a blabbering idiot. Let me know. Any feedback is welcome, and I love discussing these kinds of things with you guys. I love talking to you guys down in the comments. It's always super fun. I love to see your point of view. And if you're new to the channel and never watched any of my videos, make sure to check out my Moon Knight video. I think it's pretty good. If you enjoyed hearing me yap here, you'll definitely love hearing me yap there. It's a pretty good video. And make sure to subscribe to the channel, turn on the notifications so that way when I post, you'll be the first one here. And drop that like button if you enjoyed it. Or maybe you didn't enjoy it. Drop the dislike button. Any interaction is welcome. So that's it for me. I hope you guys all enjoyed, and I'll see you on the next one.